Aloha!
Aloha! Good morning, good afternoon, and or good evening, depending on when you're listening to us. This is Debbie Bell, Fremont County Commissioner from the beautiful state of Hawaii. Dwayne McFall and I are currently attending the Western Interstate Region Conference here in Maui County, Hawaii. And we have also...
This is Dwayne McFall, County Commissioner, and thanks for listening to us today. As she said, we are in Hawaii. This is an annual conference that happens and it moves around the country. This year it just happened to be in Hawaii, and this was a pretty special one for me.
Pretty amazing, yes.
Yeah.
A very special time for Dwayne, because just as of this morning, I would like to introduce you to the new president of the Western Interstate Region. So WIR, or WIR as it's known, actually covers, I believe, 17 different counties from the West. Is
17
that correct?
states.
I mean states,
17
yes.
states from the West, Everything from the 56th meridian, I think it is, to the West. And it's basically public lands, states, that we are trying to keep the Western way of life alive. And we have a lot of similar challenges, and we strive for that. So now not only do I get to represent Fremont County, Colorado, but the 17 Western states on a national level. So speaking for them, it's going to be really fun and challenging. I'm looking forward to it.
It will be challenging, I agree with that. It's hard to speak for anyone other than ourselves sometimes, but we do have so many things in common with these 17 different states, and so I think we all appreciate the fact that it's taken you a couple of years to get here.
Yeah.
You've worked your way up through the ranks, and so congratulations from all of us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome that you're representing Fremont County while you're doing this. So we have been here since Tuesday, and this is Friday. And so we thought we'd talk just a little bit about some of the sessions that we've gone to and the things that we've learned, things that we've done. So I think Dwayne might start out with his mobile tour of Haleakala National Park.
Yeah, this is the highest point on Maui. Obviously, it's 10,000 feet, and the ecosystem is amazing on this island. You have every climate there is, from sea level to 10,000 feet, and of course rain and dryness and moisture. It's just kind of interesting. So going up there to the top of Haleakala, it's a volcano, is how it was formed. And actually this island was formed by two volcanoes. And getting up there and you look down into the pit of that volcano, and it's a national park, but the foliage is growing in some places and not in others. And there's some stuff up there that only grows there, and only it would look like a cactus, you might say, and it only blooms once a year. It's kind of interesting, the foliage that's all over the island. Actually, there's so much foliage. We've came at a time where they have just received 60 or 65 inches of rain in like 3 or 4 days, a week or so ago. And so it's very green. It's typically not as green as we're seeing it now, which is, I did not know that until it was explained to us. And that's how they had the huge fires back in 2023, it was very dry. They've been in a drought just like we have been, believe it or not, tropical area.
They really have. So it has been flooding here, but one of the things we've talked a lot about is the 2023 fires of Lahaina. So Lahaina is a town that has actually Hawaii's most revered religious grounds. This is where most of their Hawaiian royalty is buried, and all the entire thing. I mean, it burned. It burned the entire downtown district and on Front Street. And I was able to take a tour yesterday. We did some mobile tours. So on Wednesday afternoon, or Thursday afternoon, I took the mobile tour for the Lahaina Disaster Response and Recovery. And so we did a very in-depth, it was about a 6-hour tour, and drove around to a lot of different sites, and then got out and talked about each of those sites and what was happening there. And to see and really understand the scope of the devastation here, they had a loss of life, 102 people in that particular fire that was started by heavy winds, 80 miles an hour, whipping power lines, and the power lines downed and sparked, and that's what started the fire. So the fire actually moved at a rate of 80 miles an hour. They lost 102 people. 2 are still completely unaccounted for. But I also asked the question yesterday on the tour, what happened to all of the animals? Because when we have wildfires in Fremont County, we open up spaces for people to take their animals. And the Hawaiian guy we were speaking to just looked at me for a very, very long moment, and he finally said there were no animals to do anything with because no one could get them out. And so looking around after that, I'm seeing there's a lack of animals here. There just are no animals. But listening to them with the disaster response and their recovery, how they've created new governmental offices to be able to help folks recover. I think the one biggest takeaway for me on their recovery efforts was that it takes an entire system and different people, different organization, different efforts to bring everything back together. So there's not one response, there are dozens of responses. And we got to see and listen to some of the folks from all of those different areas speak. And boy, I learned a lot. I learned an awful lot. I know we've had some disastrous fires in Fremont County, but fortunately nothing like this.
Well, I know, you mentioned it about how quickly that spread. It burned something like 2,700 homes in less than 48 hours. And it was moving rapidly. There's one way in and one way out of this little side of the island. People were literally jumping into the ocean to get away from the fires. And then there was a lack of communication. One side of the island didn't know what was happening on the other side of the island. And it was pretty devastating. And they're still rebuilding. They've built, from what I understand, there's 200 homes built. There's 300 more in the works. But they're still far cry from the 2,700 or whatever it was that was lost. But it was a national event, at the time. And a lot is learned from that. And we learn that from every disaster or emergency that we have in Fremont County, too, where we always try to get better. We had an after action of the fire that was on Fort Carson and try to figure out what we can do better. And communication is always at the top of the list. So we try to figure out, as they did here in Maui, trying to figure out how to communicate with the citizens as to what to do and when to do it, so that you don't put them in harm's way or that you can get them out of harm's way. So it's an ongoing battle to try to figure out how to communicate.
Yeah, absolutely. Another session that I attended was tourism management for public lands counties, which is very interesting here in Hawaii, simply because they probably have more tourism here than we have in Fremont County. Although we do have our fair share. So we were able to listen to some of the native Hawaiians who currently serve as county commissioners, as mayors, as different roles here, and to talk to them about what their tourism management strategies look like. Interestingly for me, one thing that they recently implemented was paid parking. We discovered that when we took a trip out of town all the way up and around the north end of the island to see a big famous blowhole that's up there. And there was nowhere to park. You could not pull off of a highway into any of the little alcoves, the pullouts that they've had for decades for visitors to just pull off, get out, stretch, walk around, take some beautiful, gorgeous, stunning photos off of the beach. You have to now pay for every single one of those. And so that was a really interesting conversation, and they in fact told us that that's not going really well for them, that people are really pushing back on that. So that was a great one. And I
attended a couple too. One of those that same day was National Waterways, and believe it or not, like I said, this tropical location, they have a drought. They have problems with water, just like we do. They do get most of the time around 600 inches of rainfall, apparently. I've heard a couple of different stories, but the last 5 years they have been in a drought and not received that much rain. So their drinking water, and these resorts that you just talked about that do have a lot of tourism, they go through a lot of water. And so there's a huge effort to try to reclaim water. There's a lens they call under the island. Interesting. They drill wells. Well, our wells go into an aquifer, right? These go through the island to a lens, they call it, where there is fresh water right under the island. And then they produce about 1 million gallons extra with those wells. Well, they've got to do it precisely right so they don't suck in too much salt water. And it's an amazing different way of handling the water that, like we do. It happens differently. And then yesterday I was on a farm tour where they happen to grow pineapple. And the farming here is obviously different than what we do, but yet the same. I mean, they still have the same goal in mind, but they do have to water and keep everything going as much as they can, even in a drought. We learned that pineapples were smaller the last couple of years because of a drought. Now they're trying to speed up the growing of the pineapples because they are behind. So it's kind of interesting that it's the same but different. It was a 757 acre farm that they're farming about half of it because they have to leave part of it in fallow to regenerate the soil because it does take a lot of nutrition out of the soil. So some very interesting stuff that can be applied where we live as well. Even though it's in a totally different climate and everything else, there are still a lot of similarities.
One of the other things that I find really fascinating is when we come to conferences and meetings like this, we do an awful lot of networking. We get to meet and spend time with other commissioners from around the country, really. These are, of course, from the western part of the country, but we talk to so many folks, and in addition to us learning about how other people do things, we have the opportunity to brag a lot about Fremont County. I've done a lot of talking here about Pathfinder Park and our experiences there with the full build out, the things that we have done, how busy we are now, the fact that we host, I think, about 800 different events at Pathfinder Park every year. And we have the opportunity to talk about things like that. We talk about budgets. We just have a great opportunity to discuss our experiences with other people and allow others to learn from us as well.
Yeah, that's where WIR is very important for us because we have a chance through NACO and WIR, Western Interstate Region, to lobby for PILT payments, payment in lieu of taxes, and that's the money we get from the federal government for the federal lands in our county that we cannot tax.
Which is about $1.2 million a year. It means a lot to Fremont County.
And there are other counties that get more and others that get less, but it's really predominantly the western states because we have the most public lands in the United States, but that is something that this avenue through National Association of Counties gives us, and that's why we participate in these, and our voice is heard. We do have a strong voice on the Capitol Hill, and it's worth it for us to be there and fight for our constituents in our state, and now me, 17 western states, so
yes.
It just adds to it, but it is well worthwhile, and we're going to continue to fight for those things that we need in our counties.
And I think probably about time to wrap it up, but I think, Commissioner McFall, we need to talk just a little bit about what you being elected as president means to Fremont County this coming September.
Yeah, as we've mentioned, I'm still going to do my job and represent Fremont County, do what I have to do there at home. However, I will be taking out some. I have to attend Western Governors Association meetings, but making contacts with those folks that can help us with legislation, even locally on the state level, because our governor is part of that Western Governors Association. So making contacts with those folks and being at the table whenever there's policies being made or drafted and that type of stuff. And then on a federal level, possibly testifying to Congress on issues that come through our WIR public lands, which always affect Fremont County and Colorado, no matter what they are, when they're related to those issues because
Good,
of the
bad, or
public lands that
ugly.
we have. Yeah,
Yep.
You know, we have a little more than 50% public land in Fremont County, so it's very important that we stay on top of that and make sure that agriculture is still welcome on there for fire mitigations, and trying to convince the federal government to take care of their forests because they are in such bad shape all over the West, not just in Fremont County. So it puts some more on my plate, but I guarantee you my job as a Fremont County Commissioner will not fail, and it just makes us stronger, I think, in the long run.
And Fremont County also has the opportunity to host the WIR board in Fremont County.
Yeah, the board
in
meeting
September
is held in the president's county. So yeah, I will be bringing in 2 commissioners from each of those 17 states and some county executives who are their association executives for 2.5 days of meetings. So they will get to enjoy our county. We're going to start off at the bridge. So far, we're working on all the logistics still, but get those guys in there to spend money in our county.
Absolutely, and I dare say this will be the first time that a NACO meeting has ever been hosted in Fremont County, Colorado. So again, congratulations.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
think we're about ready to wrap this up. Thank you so much for listening. One thing we did learn was aloha means both hello and goodbye. So in the spirit of Hawaii, aloha.